everybody, welcome to another day of tutoring. We're going to be doing some more SAT prep questions today, unless anyone has any questions that they're going to post in the chat. And let me just tweet that I am live right now. So last time we worked on the non-calculator section of the SAT practice, and today we're going to be working on the calculator section. Although I was reviewing some of the questions and we might not need a calculator, but we're allowed to use the calculator on this part of the test. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, question 1. John runs at different speeds as part of his training program. The graph shows his target heart rate at different times during his workout. On which interval is the heart rate strictly increasing, then strictly decreasing? So strictly there tells us that it needs to be going up and to the right, and then it needs to be going down and to the left. So let's review the graph here. We're going up and to the right and then flat, so that's strictly increasing, but then it's neither increasing nor decreasing, so that doesn't fit our description. Okay, this next section here is increasing and then it decreases, so that section qualifies strictly increasing, then strictly decreasing, going up and to the right, then going down and to the right. So that's between 40 and 60 minutes. So we're going to go with B, between 40 and 60 minutes. B is correct. We don't even need a piece of paper or a calculator for that part. Okay, here we go. If y equals kx, where k is a constant, and y equals 24 when x equals 6. All right, let's go and write this down. Y equals kx, and they said y equals 24 when x equals 6. So if we plug that in, we'll get 24 equals k times 6, and then we'll get 2 divide both sides by 6, and we'll get k equals 4. So we have k equals 4 now, so it says what is the value of y when x equals 5? So x equals 5 and k is 4, so we're going to get y equals 4 times 5, which is 20. So we'll go back to the test. 20 is C, so we'll choose C for number 2. C is the correct answer. So the big thing for this problem is just knowing how to substitute in numbers for variables and knowing that you're going to solve for k first and then you need to solve for y the second time, and both times it's just an equation with one variable to solve. Okay, next problem, number 3. In the figure above, lines L and M are parallel and S and T are parallel. If the measure of 1 is 35, what is the measure of angle 2? Okay, so if these lines are parallel, S and T, and L and M are parallel, then that means that this angle 1 right here is going to be the same right here, right here, and right here. We can draw this out real quick here. I'm going to do my best to draw some parallel lines, 2 diagonal lines, and then 2 lines straight across. So this angle right here is going to be replicated in all 4 of these spots, all 4 of those angles. are going to be equal to each other. So it says if the measure of angle 1 is 35 degrees, what's the measure of angle 2? Angle 2 is over here, and this angle 1 is equal to 35 degrees. And then angle 2 and angle 1 are supplementary angles because they add up to 180 degrees. They lie along a flat line here. So they're going to add up to 180 degrees. So if we do 180 minus 35, we get 145 degrees. And 145 degrees is choice D. Let's check to make sure that that's right. And it is. D. Great. So the big thing with this one here is knowing your angular rules. You need to know about supplementary angles and that two angles on a line equal 180 degrees. And that's going to be basically the biggest rule to help you solve that problem there. Okay, number 4, if 16 plus 4x is 10 more than 14, what is the value of 8x? So we need to solve for x with the information that's given in the first part of the sentence there before the comma. It says if 16 plus 4x is 10 more than 24, so is implies an equal sign. So 16 plus 4x equals, and then it says 10 more than 14. So 16 plus 4x is going to equal 24. Let's clear this off. 16 plus 4x equals 24, because 24 is 10 more than 14. So let's solve for x here. In order to solve for x, we're going to subtract 16 from both sides. That'll cancel and equal 0. And 24 minus 16 is 8. And then what we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by 4. And we're going to get x equals 8 divided by 4 is 2. So x is 2. Now let's go back and figure out what we need to do with that. So it says, what is the value of 8 times x? So if x is 2, 8x equals 8 times 2, which equals 16. 16 is choice C. We'll check that. See, we got it. So we need to be able to change words in a sentence into a math equation that just has numbers, plus, minus, multiplication, division, and equal sign. Once we did that, we solved for a single variable, and then we substituted the value that we got in to get our final answer. Number 5, which of the following graphs best shows a strong negative association between D and T? So what is a negative association? A negative association means as one thing gets bigger, the other becomes smaller. So as distance increases, time is going to be smaller, I think. Distance. D and T could stand for distance and time here. So I think that the answer is going to be D. So I'm going to draw D out on our graph here. D and T. So when D is quite small here, T is big, but as D gets bigger, T gets smaller. And we can form a little trend line here representing that. It kind of looked like this kind of shape here. And if we were to continue to draw that out. Perhaps the relationship would be like that. So when d is small, or sorry, when t is small, d is large. And you can see that here. T is small here. It's quite a small value between 0 and where this is. And d is actually quite a bit further away there. We'll label that d1 and t1. And when t gets bigger, d becomes smaller. So when we're way over here at t2, this is really far away from the origin, and d is here, d2. So as t gets bigger, d gets smaller, and that is what a negative association is. So C would be a positive association, because as d gets larger, t gets larger. A B, I'm not sure what that's called when it's the association's flat. You can see as it has no effect, I would say. As d becomes larger, there's no significant impact on t. This would be a pretty flat trend line. There's a very small impact. So you might even say that that's slightly positive. And then for A, this is no association at all, because as d gets larger, t is small and large. Like if we picked out here when d is large, there's a small t, and then it goes all the way up here to a t that's bigger. So there's no association here. We wouldn't be able to draw a trend line through there. Let's actually go to the answer explanations for this one to see what they say about it. So a graph with a strong negative association between d and t would have the points on the graph closely aligned with a line that has a negative slope. So the more closely the points are aligned on the graph, the stronger the association between d and t. So if we go back to the practice test, since these are so far apart, that means that there's not really an association because these points are spread so far, whereas these points are pretty close together with each other and in the same line, so there's a strong association. And same thing here with this positive association. And if we drew that trend line like I did before, but let's say this time we just drew it as a straight line instead of a curved line, it would kind of look like this. And if we were doing the slope, this is the change in x and the change in y. To go from point 1 to point 2 here, the change in x is going to be positive, and the change in y is going to be negative. It goes down. So we have a negative number over a positive number, and that's going to give us a negative number, which is a negative slope and a negative association. All right. I think we talked about that one enough. Remember, if you have any questions, please leave your questions in the chat, and I will be happy to answer them. All right, number 6. A hospital stores one type of medicine in 2 decagram containers. Based on the information given in the box above, how many 1 milligram doses are there in 2 decagram containers? All right, so first let's figure out how many 1 milligram doses there are in 1 decagram container. So let's write out our conversions here. They give us 1 decagram is 10 grams. And 1,000 milligrams is 1 gram. Okay, so if there's 1,000 milligrams in 1 gram, then how many milligrams in 10 grams? We do 1,000 mg over 1 gram equals how many milligrams for 10 grams? Make a ratio. And to solve a ratio, we're going to cross multiply. So we do 10 times 1,000 is 10,000 equals 1 times x is x. So the answer is 10,000 here. So in 10 grams, that equals 10,000 milligrams. And 10 grams, so 10 grams is 10,000 milligrams, and 10 grams is also 1 decagram. So that means that in 1 decagram, there are 10,000 milligrams. I'm just going to write mg. So 1 decagram, there's 10,000 milligrams. So in 2 decagrams, there's going to be 20,000 milligrams. Let's go back, make sure that's a choice. It is D, 20,000. And that's number 6, D. Great. All right, number 7. The number of rooftops with solar panel installations in 5 cities is shown in the graph above. If the total number of installations is 27,500, what is an appropriate label for the vertical axis of the graph? So if the total number of installations is 27,500, let's see here. Let's see if it's in thousands, would all of those lines add up to 27,500? So we have 9 plus 5 is 14, plus 6 is 20, plus 4 is 24, and plus 3.5 is 27,500. So if we labeled this in thousands, these would sum up to the total that they gave us. So I think that that would be the best answer. So number of installations in thousands. C for number 7. We got it. All right, number 8. For what value of n is the absolute value of n minus 1 plus 1 equal to 0? All right, so these lines right here mean absolute value, and for absolute value, we are going to treat that like a parentheses and try to compute the value inside of it, and then when we're finished with it, we take the absolute value of whatever the number is inside of the parentheses we created, and we turn that number positive, because the absolute value of any number is the positive number. So if we have the absolute value of, they use n here, so we'll use n minus 1. What I do when I'm working with that is I pretend, or in my notation, I write that there's a parentheses around that. And then we compute the value. So let's say that n is equal to -6. So I would write parentheses absolute value -6 minus 1, and absolute value, we'll make this 1, and then parentheses. So negative 6 minus 1 would be negative 7, absolute value. I put that in parentheses to remind myself to take the absolute value, and the absolute value of negative 7 is 7. We always make the number positive for the absolute value. So what they're asking is for what value of n is n minus 1 plus 1 equal to 0. So if we did n is equal to 1, 1 minus 1 would be 0, plus 1 is 1. If we did negative 6, then that would be negative 6 minus 1 is negative 7. Absolute value of negative 7 is 7, plus 1 is 8. So since the smallest number that we can make inside of the absolute value is 0, and then we're going to add 1 to it on the end here, we're never going to be able to make something equal to 0, because the smallest number we can make inside the absolute value, like I just said, is 0. And then we're going to add 1 to it, and we can't make a negative number inside of the absolute value parentheses because it's always going to turn out positive. So I would go with D. There is no such value of n. And D is the correct choice. So for this one, the biggest thing you need to know is how to apply absolute value. Questions 9 and 10 refer to the following information. The speed of a sound wave in air depends on the air temperature. The formula above shows the relationship between A, the speed of a sound wave in feet per second, and T, the air temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. So number 9, which of the following expresses the air temperature in terms of the speed of a sound wave? Which of the following expresses the air temperature, which is T, in terms of the speed of the sound wave? So what they want us to do is to rearrange this, not so that it's solved for A, so that it's solved for T. So A equals 1052, A equals 1052 plus 1.08 T, right? Yes. So let's manipulate this. How are we going to solve for T? We need to isolate T by itself. So before we get rid of the coefficient on T, let's get rid of the other terms on the right side of the equal sign. So let's subtract 1052 from both sides. We'll get A minus 1052 equals 1.08 T, and then we will divide both sides by 1.08 and be left with T equals A minus 1052 over 1.08. We have that for one of our answers, A minus 1052 over 1.08. So I would go with A, right? Just double check before we choose our answer. A minus 1052 over 1.08. And we like A, and A is correct. So do you know how to manipulate variables and move everything onto the other side of the equal sign? If so, you'll be successful on a question like this on the SAT. Number 10, we're still going to be working with the same equation. At which of the following air temperatures will the speed of a sound wave be closest to 1,000 feet per second? So we have some negative numbers there. So you might be saying to yourself, okay, should I go through and plug in negative 46 for T and then solve for A? And my answer would be no. I think that we should take 1,000 feet per second and put that in for A and then solve for T. And in number 9, we already solved the equation for T, so let's use our equation from choice A. T equals A minus 1052 over 1.08, and they want the airspeed to to be the closest to 1,000 feet per second. So let's plug it in. 1,000 minus 1,052 over 1.08 is going to be negative 52 over 1.08, and we can use the calculator for this portion of the test. So we would do negative 52 divided by 1.08, and we get negative 48.148. Negative 48.148. So we could round that to negative 48.15, and that would be rounded to negative 48.2, and that would be rounded to negative 48. So negative 48 is the closest whole number that our answer was closest to. And is that a choice? It is for B, negative 48 and 10B. So if you weren't that confident that number 9 you got it correct and that you knew that this was the correct equation, then you definitely could just go through and plug in these answers and see which one got you closest to 1,000. And so you'd have the best chance of getting this one right. If you did that, it would just take you more time to do it that way. So if you were confident that you answered number 9 correctly, then that would be the fastest way to get the answer for number 10, is to use this equation. All right, number 11. Which of the following numbers is not a solution of the inequality 3x minus 5 is greater than 4x minus 3? So again, we have 4 choices here, and we could do guess and check, but there's going to be a faster way for us to do it here. 3x minus 5 is greater than or equal to 4x minus 3. Okay, with an inequality, you want to keep the x positive, because if you have a negative coefficient attached to your x, you're going to have to flip the inequality symbol, and that's making things more complicated than they need to be. So let's avoid that by subtracting 3x from both sides. That'll cancel out over there, so we'll have negative 5 is greater than or equal to, this is going to be x minus 3. And then we're going to add 3 to both sides, and negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2 is greater than or equal to x. And then if we rewrite that with the x first, x needs to be less than or equal to negative 2 in order for this equation to hold. Less than or equal to negative 2. So negative 1 is not less than or equal to negative 2. Negative 1 is greater than negative 2. If we drew ourselves a number line here, here's 0, here's negative 1, and here's negative 2. And negative 1 is to the right of negative 2, so it's greater than it. And that doesn't satisfy our rule of less than or equal to negative 2. Anything to the left of negative 2, right? This would be a closed circle on top of negative 2 with an arrow pointing to the left. So negative 1 is not correct. A for 11. A for 11 is correct. Okay, number 12. Based on the histogram above of the following, which is closest to the average arithmetic mean number of seeds per apple? Alright, so we need to be able to read this graph here, and that's going to be the most important thing that we're going to do this whole time because we need to create our data set. So there were 2 apples that had 3 for a number of seeds, and we're trying to get the mean for number of seeds per apple. So I'm going to write down 3 2 times. 3, 3. Because this apple had 3 seeds, and this apple had 3 seeds. There were 4 apples that had 5 seeds, so I'm going to write 5 4 times. There was 1 apple with 6 and 2 apples with 7. 6, 7, 7. And there were 3 apples with 9 seeds. 9, 9, 9. How many apples in total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 apples. So what we're going to do is we're going to sum the number of seeds in 12 apples and divide by 12 apples to get our mean. So we have 6 and 20 and another 20 and 27. So this is 46, and 46 and 27 is going to be 73. 6, 20, 14 and 6 is 20, 9 times 3 is 27. 73 over 12 to get the mean. Now 72 over 12 would be 6. So this is a number a little bit bigger than 6. Let's calculate it on the calculator. 73 divided by 12 is 6.08. So 6.08, based on the histogram above, which is the closest to the average number of seeds per apple, we got 6.08. So C is 6, which is closest, and C is our answer. All right, moving on to number 13. A group of 10th grade students responded to a survey that asked which math course they were currently enrolled in. The survey data were broken down as shown in the table above. Which of the following categories accounts for approximately 19% of all survey respondents? Okay, so we really need to break down this last sentence here to understand what they're asking us. Which of the following categories amounts for approximately 19% of all the survey respondents? So what is the definition of all the survey respondents? It would be everyone who answered the survey, and the total for that is 310 people. There was 150 males and 160 males and 150 females. And that adds up to 310. And there were 79 students in Algebra 1, 112 in Geometry, and 119 in Algebra 2, which adds up to 310%. 310%. So we need to come up with here which one of these is about 19% of all the survey respondents. So let's see what they give us for choices, because there's quite a lot of numbers. It could be, any of these 6, these 3, or these 2, which is 11 numbers, and they're going to give us 4 choices. So let's read the choices they give us. Females taking geometry. So females taking geometry, and it's 19%. So 19% is really close to 20%, and 20% as a fraction is 1/5. So we want the number that they're going to give us to be about 1/5 of the total. So before we actually read these numbers, let's get a ballpark number of what they're looking for. 310 divided by 5 is 62. So let me write this down on the whiteboard here to show you visually. The total sorry, my pen was not working there for a second. Okay, so the total is 310 students, and they want 19%. So what I was saying is that if we wanted to estimate, 19% is about 20%. So look for something that's about 1/5 of the total, which is 310. But since we can use the calculator, they're saying the total is 310, and they want a number that's 19%. So let's just plug that in on the calculator since we have it. 310 times 0.19 is what? 310 times 0.19 is 58.9. 58.9. So let's just round that to 59. So whatever number they give us, if it's really close, if it's the closest to 59, that's going to be the answer that we give. So we already know what we're looking for now. There's a number, and it's 59, so I don't even need to read the choices anymore. 59's right there. Males taking geometry, C, number 13. C. So they gave you enough information for you to just get the answer from the question. You don't have to read the choices or be intimidated by this table right here. You just need to know what is the definition of all survey respondents, multiply that by 0.19 to get what 19% of it is, and then find that number on the table, 59, and then select your answer, C, which is correct. All right, 14, the table. Again, if you guys have questions, go ahead and drop your questions in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Otherwise, I'm going to keep working through these problems here. So 14, the table above lists the lengths to the nearest inch of a random sample of 21 brown bullhead fish. The outlier measurement of 24 inches is an error. Of the mean, median, and range of the values listed, which will change the most if the 24-inch measurement is removed from the data? Of mean, median, and range of the values listed. Okay. Mean, median, and range is what we're going to work with here. Mean, median, and range. So we need to be able to define these things so we know how to find them. So it's the mean. The mean is the average or the total over number of things. The median is the middle term. So if it's odd, it's the middle term. And if it's even, we're going to average the two middle terms. And the range is the max minus the min. Okay. So for the range, that's going to be the easiest one to do. So let's get that one out of the way first. If we have 24 in here, the smallest is 8, the largest is 24. So that's a range of 16. And if we take 24 out, then the range is going to be 16 to 8. So that's going to be a change of 8. We went from 24 to 8 is 16 of a range, 16 to 8 is 8. So that's going to be a change of 8. The range is going to go down by 8. delta means change, -8. Okay, so let's do the median. We've got how many terms here? 1, 2, 3 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 21 terms. So the 11th term, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is going to be our median. And if we take 24 out, we're going to have 20 terms. So we're going to average the two middle terms, 1, 2, so 12 is still going to be the median because there are so many 12s. So the median is not going to change at all. Will the mean change? I don't think the mean is going to change by more than 8 if we drop out one term out of 21 terms. And I don't think that adding up all of these things on your calculator would be fast. You know, you only have so much time for this. So let's see what they say for the explanation. 14. I'm going to go with the range. C is going to change the most. Let's see. The range is going to change the most. I'm just using intuition there to see to say that, because the average, you know, you're going to add up 21 numbers, and if you just divide a similar sum by 20, it's going to be something close. So let's see what they say for an explanation for question 14. So the change in the range 8 inches is much greater than the change in the mean or median. Okay, so here's a way that they explain it to prove it. After the 24-inch measurement is removed, the sum of the lengths in inches of the remaining 20 fish is 21m minus 24, and the mean length in inches of these 20 fish is then 21m minus 24 over 20, which is a change of 24 minus m over 20. Since m must be between the smallest and largest measurements of the 21 fish, it follows that 8 is less than m. 8 is less than m is less than 24. Since m must be, right, because m is going to be the mean, and the mean has to be between the smallest measurement, 8, and the largest measurement, 24. So that means that if we put it in that range and we solve this right here, it's going to be 24 minus 24 over 20, which is 0, and 24 minus 8 over 20, which is 4 over 5. So the right, because that's the change in the mean. Gotcha. So this is saying the mean is 24 and the mean is 8, and we're doing that because the mean is going to be between 24 and 8, so we're just doing the extremes, and this is how much the mean could possibly change by subtracting the 24-inch value. It's going to change between 0 and 4/5, so it could only change up to 0.8 in the most extreme. So that is less than the change in the range 8 inches. Choice B is incorrect because the median length of the 21 fish is the length of the 11th fish, 12 inches. After removing the 24-inch measurement, the median of the remaining 20 lengths is the average of the 10th and 11th fish, which would be unchanged at 12 inches. So it's going to be the range. So obviously you don't need to know it this in depth, but this is proving to you that the mean could only change by 0 to 0.8. The median isn't going to change at all. And so the range is going to have the largest impact by taking out an outlier. The range is going to be far more impacted because the range is the smallest, the largest subtracted the smallest. So if you have an outlier, it's obviously going to affect the range because it's something that's way far away from the mean or median. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Total cost of renting a boat by the hour, time, hours, total cost, dollars. So we have time on the x-axis, cost on the y-axis. Where does the c-intercept represent the graph? So for 0 hours of the boat, you're going to pay $5. And to me, that means that you're going to have to pay $5 just to get the boat. And then for the first hour, you'll go from $5 to $8. And then from hour 1 to hour 2, you go from $8 to $11. So it's going to be $3 an hour after you pay the $5 to get the boat. So the c-intercept represents the initial cost of renting the boat, the total number of boats rented, the total number of hours the boat is rented, the increase in cost to rent the boat for each additional hour. It's the initial cost of renting the boat. A for number 15, A. 16, which of the following represents the relationship between H and C? So we have the y-intercept, and we just identified the slope 1 second ago. From hour 0 to hour 1, we go from 0.5 to 1.8. So if we go from 0.5 to 1.8, and we do the change in y over the change in x to calculate our slope, we would do 8 minus 5 over 1 minus 0, and we would get 3 over 1 over 3 for our m. And in the last problem, we identified what our b was, and it's right here. I just wrote it down. 0, 5, so b is 5. So we would just write c is the y in this case, the total cost, equals blank times the number of hours you rent the boat plus blank. $5 was the cost just to get the boat, and then for every hour that you rented, it's going to be $3. So c equals 3h plus 5 is going to be our equation, which is choice C. And there we have it. So when it says represents the relationship between H and C, 1 is our input value, or our independent variable, time. And the cost is the dependent variable, which depends on how many hours you rent the boat for, which is C. And we can write a mathematical equation that defines the relationship, which is this function, sorry, not B, this function, C. All right, 17. The complete graph of the function f is shown in the xy plane above. For what value of x is the value of f of x at its minimum? Okay, that's an arrow. 0, 1. For what value of x? So I'm going to say that the minimum point is here, but they don't want the value of y, they want the value of x, and so this is the x-axis here, so this is 0, so -1, -2, -3. B, -3, B. So for this one here, you need to know that how to identify a minimum and a maximum for a function. And we identify the minimum or maximum with the y, because the y is the output, so the y is the highest here and it's the lowest here. And then so for what value of x is the value of f of x at its minimum, we need to know that f of x at its minimum means when is y at its minimum, because f of x can also be written as y. F of x is equal to y. They mean the same thing. That's all I'll say about that for now. Okay, number 18. In the xy plane, if 0, 0 is a solution to the system of inequalities above, which of the following relationships between a and b must be true? So y is less than... Alright, so let's plug in 0, 0, because it says it's a solution to the system of equations, so let's write these down. Y is less than negative x plus a. And y is greater than x plus b. So it says that 0, 0 is a solution, so let's plug in 0 here. 0 is less than negative 0 plus a, so 0 is less than a. And if that's true, then that means, that implies that a has to be greater than 0. So some possible values could be like 1, 2, 3, etc. And for here, we'd have 0 is greater than 0 plus b, or 0 is greater than b, which then implies that b is less than 0. So some possible values could be like negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, etc. So if that's the case, if a is greater than 0, meaning it's all positive numbers, b is less than 0, it's all negative numbers, and that means that a has to be greater than b. Which of the following relationships must be true? A is greater than b. That's what we just worked out, so I'm going to go with A for number 18, and that is correct. 19, food truck. Sell salads for $6.50 each and drinks for $2 each. The food truck's revenue from selling a total of 209 salads and drinks in one day was $836.50. How many salads were sold that day? All right, we're going to set up a system of equations here. We need to write two equations with two variables and then solve for one of them to get our answer, how many salads were sold that day. So we will concentrate on salads. So $6.50 salad, drink is $2. 6.5 S. That S and the 5 look similar. So let's use G for greens, because salads have greens and G doesn't look like a number. $6.50 for greens and a drink for $2. So plus 2 times D is $836.50. So if I knew the number of salads I sold G and I knew the number of drinks I sold D, I'd be able to solve for the total amount of revenue that we had for the day. And it says that 209 salads and drinks were sold in the day. So the second equation that we're going to have is the number of salads plus the number of drinks equals, you guessed it, 209. So now we have two equations with two variables, and we can solve one of them, and then we'll do a substitution. So let's solve for d, because d is multiplied by a whole number and not a decimal, and that will be easier to do the distributive property on. So let's subtract g from both sides, and we'll get d equals 209 minus g. So then we'll plug this in for d up here. We'll get 6.5g plus 2 times 209 minus g equals $836.50. Now we're going to use the distributive property here, and we'll get 6.5g plus 418 minus 2g equals 836.50. And then we will subtract 418 from both sides, and we'll get 418.50. And we'll combine 2g and 6.5g, sorry, negative 2g and 6.5g to get 4.5g. And then g is going to equal 418.50 over 4.5. And we can use the calculator, so we will do it on there. 418.5 divided by 4.5 is 93. So g is 93. And remember, g stands for greens because the s looked too much like 5. So g is greens or salads. We sold 93 salads. Excellent, lots of salads. So how many drinks did we sell? D, we're going to plug g into this equation right here. So d equals 209 minus g, which is 93. And we have our calculator. 209 minus 93 is 116. And then just very quickly, we can verify that this works by plugging 93 and 116 into our equation up here and making sure that that adds up. So 116 times 2 is 232, and 6.5 times 93 is 604.5. And if we add 604.5 plus 232, we're going to get 836.50. So that is correct. And they wanted to know how many salads were sold that day. Salads are G, 93. 93 is B. For number 19, B. We got it. All right, great. We've almost been going for about an hour here, and we're going to keep chugging along. How many more questions do we have in this section? I think that we can get through this whole section today. Okay. Number 20. Alma bought a laptop computer at a store that gave a 20% discount off its original price. The total amount she paid to the cashier was P dollars, including an 8% sales tax on the discounted price. Which of the following represents the original price of the computer in terms of P? Alright, so let's try and write our equation here. She's going to pay the original price, which I'm going to call O. And we're going to multiply that by 20% discount off its original price. So we're going to multiply that by 0.8. Or I could write it as O, we'll call it Q, since O looks like 0. O times 1 minus 0.2, which would be 100% of the price minus the 20% discount. And then after we get that whole price, we're then going to multiply that by 1.08 to get the 8% sales tax, and that will give us P, which is the total price. So Q times 0.8 times 1.08. And now we need to solve this equation for O. Equals P, or sorry, for our Q here, where Q is the original price. Q is original price. So now we need to solve for P. So let's divide both sides by 1.08. Sorry, I'm having a pen malfunction here. Let's go to what they say for this one, 20. Let's see if we're on the right track here. Alright, let's let X be the original price, so they do that. X, the discounted price, is 20% off the original price. Okay, so that's where I went wrong in writing my equation. X minus 0.2x is 0.8x is the discounted price in dollars. And then we're going to add the sales tax, which is 0.08. Yep, I just did times 1.08, so that wasn't correct either. Okay, so if X is the price, we're going to subtract 0.2x from that 20% times the original price, and that's going to give us 0.8x, which is going to be the price that we pay, 0.8x, plus we're going to do 0.8x, which is the price we're going to pay, times 0.08 to get the sales tax. We're going to add that, and then that's going to give us the price. Okay. Right, but they're going to get to the same thing I had before, okay, because they can go from this here, 0.8x plus 0.08 times 0.8x, they pull a 0.8x out of both of these terms. They factor it out. 0.8x is here, 0.8x is here, so I'm going to pull 0.8x out, and I'm going to be left with what? So I pulled 0.8x out of this, so I'll be left with 1, plus I pulled a 0.8x out of this, so I'll just be left with 0.08, 0.08, and then they combine these terms here to get 0.8x times 1.08 equals p. So then what do they do? Now we're going to manipulate the equation and get x all by itself. First thing we'll do is divide both sides by 1.08, p over 1.08. So we have 0.8x equals p over 1.08. And then we'll divide both sides by 0.8, which means that we'll multiply this down here. X equals p over 1.08 times 0.8. So D is going to be our answer, right? Yep. Alright, so that's going to do it for the stream today. We got through 20 questions, and that's a really good amount of questions to get through. So if you didn't ask your question in the chat today, you can drop me a DM on Twitter at totrainyourself2, and I'd be happy to help you out with your math questions. But yeah, I plan on doing another stream tomorrow. So if you have questions that you have, you can DM me, leave a comment on this video, or if you have a topic that you just want to be covered in a video that you can come and watch anytime other than SAT practice questions, please leave a comment down below and let me know. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. See you later.